Forgive me if I've told this story before, but every Christmas it sort of stands out for me as a strong memory. It was a Christmas when I was about 14 years old. We had had our usual opening of our stockings and then dressed for a full breakfast before we could gather around the Christmas tree to open any presents, talking about patience and waiting. My older brothers were opening their presents one by one, and I always liked to savor the experience. Truth be told, I wanted the smugness of still having one more gift to open when everybody else had opened all of theirs. Opening everything very carefully, slowly, and always happy to see that I had just one more thing to unwrap. This particular Christmas, I had opened a package containing socks. Very useful indeed. I watched my brothers opening what appeared to be more extravagant gifts. Can't remember exactly what they were, but I can recall, somewhat embarrassingly, that I was feeling a little disappointed and sorry for myself. Not that I don't like socks, but it seemed that that was how things were going. You catch my drift. Some new hair elastics, bottled shampoo, nice book. I was trying so hard not to let my disappointment show on my face. My parents were always so thoughtful and generous with their gift giving. They took great pleasure and joy out of not only surprising us kids, but they were a couple of kids themselves when it came to buying gifts for each other. I remember one particular Christmas, I think my mother had bought my father a new sports jacket, and it wasn't enough to just have it on a hanger with a bow. She had to build a big box and decorate it like a little small fireplace, complete with mantle and stockings hanging out front and Santa's feet dangling in the middle of it. Christmas was a lot of fun and very creative in our house. So now I was sitting there and taking in all that was around me, and I was thinking, okay, now I'm down to my last present. Not very big, kind of heavy. I slowly peeled the tape so as not to rip the paper. All was quiet as the rest of my family watched me open it. My mother had a funny smile on her face, and I removed the last of the wrapping, and to my shock and unexpected pleasure, I found myself holding a flute case in my hands. I had never dreamed that we could afford the cost of such an instrument. I was speechless. My mother laughed at the shocked look on my face and clapped her hands in glee. She'd really surprised me, which is saying something for a 14-year-old. Beyond my greatest expectations, and I remember feeling so joyful I was almost teary. Christmas can be like that sometimes. We have different kinds of expectations. Some great, sometimes different. Whatever they are, we tend to expect something. We have an idea in our minds of what it should or could be or look like. Many of us plan festive meals or hope for extended family to gather. Sometimes it's a very difficult time if loved ones are not present. Some plan dinner at a restaurant, some decorate for days, if not weeks, so that everything looks magical and sparkly. I confess I do that. Some of those expectations are based on what our family traditions were. Reverend John asked us at staff last week what some of those were for us. And Drew said his family often drove around town after church Christmas Eve to see Christmas lights. And Andrea said her family always had her mother's pulled beef and pork meat pies for breakfast. And John remembers going to church Christmas Eve, and the one year he rebelled and ended up at McDonald's with his dad. He decided maybe that wasn't such a good idea after all. We always had coffee cake Christmas morning after breakfast, and I loved my mother's Christmas-shaped shortbread cookies with little sparkly decorations on them. Believe it or not, there were always expectations related to Christmas, in particular related to the arrival of the Messiah. For centuries, Jewish people of faith had yearned for the one who would come and bring about a new order, a just and fair society, a fulfillment of the prophecy read to us this morning by Andrew from the prophet Isaiah, the one whom John the Baptist spoke of and prepared the people to receive. I am not even worthy to untie his sandals, John the Baptist said, referring to Jesus. Imagine the expectations of literally generations for the one who would come and transform their lives. A mighty king, a warrior who would destroy their enemies and allow them to live in peace, no longer slaves or oppressed by foreign rulers, free to live their lives worshiping their God and growing their families and fortunes. Expectations were high indeed for this one that was expected. When Jesus was born of a young unwed mother in a stable, surrounded by ox and sheep, I can tell you that was not what they expected. Lowly shepherds gathered to see this king that angels had sung hallelujahs to in the night? The star that shone the brightest any had ever seen even guided wise ones from faraway lands to bow before this Prince of Peace, a child refugee forced to flee his home country for fear of death at the hands of King Herod. Process theologian John Cobb writes that Jesus did not fulfill the prophecies of Isaiah in the way Isaiah expected. For Isaiah, the main point was about kingly succession. And progressive preacher Rex Hunt comments on Cobb's conclusion, saying, whatever Jesus' ancestry was, he was not what Isaiah expected. He did not engage in royal judgment, administering justice to the poor, neither did he kill the wicked. Cobb is said to suggest that Jesus was more a partial fulfillment of the hopes that Isaiah expressed. So the best, Hunt concludes, that we can say about Jesus is that he fulfilled some of what Isaiah hoped for, and that he was in fact different than what Isaiah thought a Messiah would be. But isn't that true about our own expectations in life? Some of our expectations are met. Some are different than what we expected when they are finally realized. And it makes me think of the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The more I reflect on my own life and faith, I feel that in some way that my own expectations have changed over the years. Do you find that? As we mature and grow in experiences and wisdom, our earlier thinking and conclusions shift. Perhaps it relates to a loss of innocence. Maybe the harsh realities and pain of life erode our hopes and our dreams. But I wouldn't say that I am cynical or without hope. My expectations have shifted. My experience of Christmas is a good metaphor for that. I can't relive those magical childhood experiences of the wonder and delight of surprises on Christmas morning. I can't always have that feeling of family togetherness. I do feel sadness remembering those who are no longer alive and here to share those same Christmas moments. I do feel pain at fractured relationships or health challenges that keep those I love from being together this Christmas. I have had to adjust my expectations. I keep some, but others are different. But somehow my experience of Christmas and what it means to me has actually gone deeper. It's no longer the glittery, tinsel-strewn shape it used to be. It's more I can smell the animals in the barn, but still gather round that manger to glimpse grace alive in the world, nestled in a bed of straw experience. Perhaps letting go of the great expectations allows me to more realistically and perhaps more deeply experience the arrival of God in our midst in extraordinary and unexpected ways. Hunt describes some prophecies of the Messiah to be seen as a judgment to inspire fear in the disobedient of a select few, whereas the kingdom of Jesus was an invitation to inspire hope to all people. Jesus' birth invites us to reimagine new possibilities for the world and for ourselves. Expectations can sometimes keep us locked in one point of view or position. The arrival of the Son of God, born to a teenaged girl betrothed to a carpenter on the road to Bethlehem, reminds me that I need to be more open to other ways of even my own story unfolding. My Christmas expectations have changed over the years, as has my faith. It is not as innocent and seamless as it used to be. It has been shattered and bent a few times. It has lost some of its original shine, but it has a kind of patina that I would hate to lose or cover over. It represents all the ups and downs of my life, the joys and the challenges that have shaped me to who I am today. And those scars and scratches have healed into deeper awareness of life's and its frailty. God has been with us all in our lives' experiences. God has been with us all in expectations great and small, fulfilled and disappointed, shifted and changed. And I know that God will continue to be born in each of us, and every day that we look for the stars in the sky and listen for the angels' chorus. I continually await with an expectant heart for the one who will be with me and guide me, the one who will be with each of us, who will surprise us with unconditional love and grace when we least expect it. The one who will appear in people and places we could never have imagined. My expectations are still there, just different. But we are blessed nonetheless this Christmas as the gifts of peace and hope and joy and love are shared with each of us in surprising ways. God with us, Emmanuel. Expect great things. Amen.